Shalom. I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. Today's Torah reading in Israel, this week's Torah reading in Israel, is Shelach. Shelach contains the story of Moses sending 12 spies to look out, to spy over the land of Canaan, where we're about to enter, which ultimately is the land of Israel, to find out what the people are like, what the land is like. And the 12 spies were the heads of their tribe. 10 of the spies came back with nothing but defamation about the land of Israel, the land of Canaan. They started out by saying how great things were, and then they started defaming the land and the people. And there's a very important message that we learned from this. One of the things we learned from the message of the spies is how, at least the 10 that we're talking about, the 10 who gave the defamatory comments, is what happened to their self-esteem. And this is important because we live in a society where, unfortunately, many of us just follow the crowd wherever it's going, and we don't really think about what is right, what is wrong. If somebody else is doing it, that's what we should do. We're concerned. We're concerned about whether or not our conduct conforms to that of society. And one of the things we learned from this incident with the Baraglim, with the spies, is that your self-esteem and your value does not depend on what other people think. You know, for example, we as Jews were children of Abraham, of Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu was the one person in the world. He stood on one side of the world, everybody else was on the other. He stood for the concept of one God. He stood despite the fact that everybody else was worshiping idols, and they mocked him and ridiculed him and so on. Shakespeare once said, "To thine own self be true, and thou shalt not be false to any man." In this Parsha, as the Torah is relating what the spies, what the Baraglim said to the people to convince them not to go forward into the land of Israel as God had offered them, one of the things they said is, "V'sham ra'inu es hanafilim." We saw these giants. "V'niya be'einenu kechagavim." And we look like grasshoppers to ourselves. "V'chein hayinu be'eineihem." And so too, we appeared to them. We must have appeared to them. What they were saying, they were attributing to these giants, Bnei Anakim, they were attributing to them their own feelings, not their own feelings of worth as the children of kings. And we learn from this parsha, from this paragraph, this statement, that, as the Kotzker Rebbe said, he said that the biggest criticism of them was, why did they say this is what we look like in their eyes? He says, what difference does it make to a person how he looks in the eyes of somebody else? Go on the path that you're supposed to go on. Do what is right, according to your ability. And don't look at somebody else and think, gee, is this going to fit in with what somebody else thinks. The Midrash on this sentence says that God was willing to overlook the statement that the spies made that we felt like grasshoppers in their eyes. But he said, when they said they thought of us as grasshoppers, that he couldn't forgive. He says, where are they coming up with this? All the things that they've seen, who told them that in the eyes of anybody else they're anything other than kings, children of kings, children of the King of Kings? And he says, because of this, they received the great punishment of having to stay 40 years, 1 year for each day of the spying, 40 years in the desert. And the sages teach us that we heard the giants say, look at, there are ants crawling around the vineyards. He says that Sfas Emes says that whatever a person thinks, that's what he hears. And because they felt like they were like ants, therefore, they said, this is what we heard them saying about us. They're dependent on their deeds, on whatever somebody else thinks. And the foolishness of guiding your actions not by what is right, not by what the Torah tells us, not by what you know is right, but rather by what the people might think of you, is demonstrated by an interesting story brought by Rabbi. And he tells he talks about what's going to happen if I do this. What's everybody going to think? So he tells this story of a man, an older man, father, walking with his young child and the donkey. And the young child, because he's young, is on the donkey. And they go for a while, and they meet up with somebody, and somebody looks at this boy on the donkey, and the old man is trudging along, struggling, and he says, what kind of chutzpah is? Where's your respect for your father? You can't ride on the donkey while he's walking. So the boy gets off. The father gets on the donkey. They go a little bit further. This time the father's riding the donkey, the boy's on the side. They meet another person. And he looks at the father and he says, what kind of a father are you? You've got a young son. He can't walk like this. Why are you not letting him on the donkey? So at this point, the son doesn't want to get back on the donkey. So what do? So the father gets off the donkey and starts walking with the son and the donkey next to him. Somebody else comes along and says, what do you do? Why are you both walking? You have a donkey. Get on the donkey. They both get on the donkey. Anyway, the weight and the exertion of the donkey is so much that by the time they get to the city they were going to, they end up carrying the donkey. The parable teaches us how foolish it is to just guide your activities by what it might look like. If you are the only one in a crowd who wants to express his Judaism, don't be afraid to do so. Be proud to be a Jew. Show off your Judaism. show off how it is important to keep the commandments of God, regardless of what everybody else is doing. In a place where there is no man, you be a man. This is what happened. Moshe Rabbeinu, remember, in Parsha Shelach, he saw the Egyptian leading a Jew, and he looked here and there, and he says, he didn't see a man, didn't see a person, didn't see somebody who had the ability to do what was right. Moshe did what was right. The message from this Parsha is that we need to follow the rules of the Torah and do what is right, and not guide our conduct with conduct that the majority of people might be doing if it is not consonant with the Torah values. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.